mean, do you understand that, like, that is like high school, college me when I was balling every day or whatever. That's like me saying I could beat Ant-Man 11 to 10. Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. It's so crazy, man.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
We're in the business of winning.
Don't bet against me.
I don't bet anyway.
Lose your life.
All right, boys. We're in the fog of war right now. And I know you guys are looking for some direction. You're saying, Nick, we need a way out. Show us the way. Give us your commentary on what's happening. So we're going to talk about it. Dildo Gate. That's right. We're talking about Dildo Gate. Reeled me in. I had to make a video on it. So I'm being a little facetious, but you guys know I usually don't just go around kind of like following day-to-day topics, you know, and sort of like a mass, you know, making videos all the time, day-to-day. Not that I hate on it. It's just not my style. And, you know, this has been going on for like a week or so, so obviously I didn't just jump on the chance to do this video. But I saw this video today that I've got pulled up here, and kind of just all clicked. And I just kind of had a big epiphany, and I wanted to kind of, some things I felt for a while, but this kind of ties it all together in a way. And I want to talk about what's going on more from like a bird's eye cultural view. I don't want to get so zoomed in on what's happening like right now. I think everyone's heard the you know, shock and awe and the everyone's skin deep reaction to it, right? So I want to do a little different. And so I kind of want to talk about it from like a cultural view. And I'm going to say some things that probably people will disagree with, but it is what it is, right? I want to give my opinion. That's why we're all here. So first, I want to say I don't think that like the crypto or monetary incentive with the sports betting props is really what this is about and what's really driving it and why it really became a thing. While I understand that maybe adds fuel to the fire, I don't think that's what this is all about. And I am more interested in why someone would put that line out in that way with that object directed at that demographic and why it became, you know, you start having copycats and it became a thing, right? I'm more curious about the why instead of, you know, what happened or what got us here instead of just like, oh, well, it's about money, right? I think that's sort of a lazy way out of just hand waving away what's going on, right? And so, of course, you come to your boy to keep it real with you, and that's what we do here. I don't like to get political, but I just can't help it with this one. It's kind of all wrapped into one, you know, with sports, so I gotta do it. So let's put the money to the side. If you think the money's a big deal, then we just disagree here and we go our own separate ways. So let's just get right off. I've been trying to make this video and I go way too long, so I'm trying to be short and succinct. And I don't mean to come off dry or like unemotional, right? Or that I don't care, indifferent. The men's game. We're talking about sports, right? Men's sports is a superior product to women's sports, right? And I don't mean to say superior, inferior in a derogatory way. It is nothing more than a description of the biological reality of what we all know and see every day in our lives, right? And I'm not going to be gaslit to think otherwise or say otherwise or even waver in that opinion whatsoever, right? You can call me anything you want. It just is what it is. I'm not going to lie to myself or to you. When we look at, you know, the AAU under 15 boys out of Dallas, Texas, beating the women's national team in soccer 5-2. Same thing happened in Australia, right? Under 15 boys group beat the Australian women's national team in soccer when the Australian women's team was like top 5 in the world at that time. They were one of the best teams in the world for the women. You have the Wrexham, the older retired players, just beat the brakes off of our women's national team like 12-2 or whatever it was. So you look at track times, swimming times, lifting records, long distance running, It doesn't matter what we do. When we're talking about physical exertion in sports, the men simply offer the absolute pinnacle of what this world is capable of giving us in sport and competition, right? I tried to make that sound a little poetic, right? But men's sports, the exertion of the human body performing physical tasks, as the kids say, there are just levels to this thing, and it is night and day. It is more drastically night and day difference than maybe what some will want to admit, but there is a difference, right? There is no denying it. Now, again, it doesn't mean to be derogatory, right? Is the 8th grade boys team down the road here, they are inferior to the University of Houston basketball team downtown, right? That is not to say that they both don't deserve a place, or they, like the 8th grade boys don't deserve to play basketball, or like they don't deserve to have fans come watch their game, or it's nothing like that, right? It's not a derogatory, it's merely a descriptor, right? That being said, right, and also the other layer of that, the second thing to that is that sports is largely a male-dominated industry and world, right? Put it down to personality, put it down to maybe, again, cultural. I think there's a cultural rub with this whole thing that people aren't talking about. Culturally, right, sports is a heavily male-dominated thing. And just is what it is. I think we can all agree with that. You know, we spend our money, our time, our energy. It's because just personality types, aggression, you know, physical capability. It is just something that men and boys do at a much higher rate than women. Whether it's playing, whether it's watching, whether it's spending money on it, right? Any number of ways you could break it down. It's just a male-dominated industry. The other side of that, if we are to say that men are a superior product, talent, explosiveness, entertainment, that does mean that the women's game is an inferior product. That is to say that if given the choice, or if you were to have to pick athletes or something to watch, almost all people with biases removed, right? So in other words, if you have a daughter, right, you know, removing biases that you might have, everyone would agree that the NBA or the men's game is a more entertaining and superior product. In almost every metric, right? To say otherwise would be you're just kidding yourself. You're lying to yourself. I say that to say this, which might be actually the spicy take. I really feel like, I don't mean to put a tinfoil hat on here. I'm not trying to do that. I really feel in the age of social media and internet and TV contracts and hyper-consumerism, you know, there's nothing bad with consumerism per se, right? As long as you're not being gluttonous with it in a way, or, you know, there could be ethical ways to consume, right? But with the sort of just mass, you know, commercial consumerism that we have in America, which I think most people would just agree we do. We have just like a lot of materialistic consumerism, right? I really feel that the women's game with pro sports in general and the marketing of women's sports in general, it really has felt like from the powers that be, it is being pushed to unlock the other half of the demographic in this country, or the world for that matter, to buy more sports stuff, to sell more TV contracts, to any number of things, right? All the things that come into having a pro league, right? And, you know, again, the WNBA has not made money, right? They are a money pit. I think they might turn a profit this year or something. I'm not sure. But I think there is a feeling that the women's professional league and women's sports in general, outside of college, once you get past college, talking about pros, that it is inflated by a lot of these things that I just mentioned, right? And that the WNBA and the product itself, the game itself on the floor, isn't really what it's about with the sort of people who are, doing all of the marketing and making the money in the background, right? To me, it feels like a way to sell things to women in a male dominated industry, right? That's how it feels, right? I'm not saying that there are not some genuine people who truly love to take, their mom and daughter to the WNBA game, and that's inspiring for them. I am not knocking that whatsoever, right? You have to try not, please give me a charitable explanation of what I'm trying to say. With that being said, with that, it feels like it has just been pushed as a marketing ploy. Again, I don't mean to be so harsh with it, but that's sometimes how it comes off. I think there is a cultural rub here. I think there's some cultural resentment in a way where I want to make sure I say this properly. An inferior product is sort of being propped up for clicks and selling stuff, and that is sometimes okay. That right, but the real rub is that there is an ego that has begun to grow out of that within, let's just be specific to the WNBA, but maybe even women's sports in general. There has been an ego and a lack of humility that has grown out of that from the WNBA, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. And this is the video that made me want to do this and say this and put it all together. There is an ego with the WNBA that has to die. It has got to freaking die, man. When you say things like this, and when Brittany Griner almost seems, almost insinuates that she's taken aback, that you would even think DeMarcus Cousins had a chance against her. When I just saw, there's a clip of the one girl going around saying that if she got ball first, she could beat Ant-Man 11-10. There has become this sort of, see, as much as what I said a second ago, where it feels like it is a propped up marketing ploy, I'm going to put it up like that. You know what I mean? I kind of explain what I think I mean when I say that. You might say, well, you're like, again, the tinfoil hat. You might say, like, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're just being a hater. But then when women in the women's league say things like this, I am proven right. Like, my theory is right. When women start saying they can beat men one-on-one, when women start, acting insulted at the fact that you don't even think they have a chance against DeMarcus Cousins, right? This is where we get back to Dildo Gate. This is where Dildo Gate comes in, I think, where you put up the line, but you could have said, like, throw it, will a Teletubby be thrown into the WNBA court? Or, like, will someone throw a football onto the WNBA court? Like, probably nothing happens, right? It doesn't catch on. But the reason someone offered the way it did, and people were jumping at the chance to do it, and the reaction from it, we're going to get to how I think the WNBA should have handled it. I think you can call them trolls if you want, but I think there is this rub going on where the women's game is somewhat beginning to make a joke of itself with statements like this, with the way, the ego that they have that has been born out of the WNBA that could not survive on its own merits and profit and loss balance sheet. Again, there is a such thing as you are putting money into something, hoping that eventually you will get the money out. But no investment usually goes on this long, losing money this long, right? It just doesn't happen, right? So there must be making money other places, right? So, Nike might be on the jerseys and might support the WNBA, but really where they're making their money is selling like female basketball apparel now across the world, right? That's really where that's really like where the difference is coming in. And the ratings may not be good, but they don't really care because they've already sold the TV contracts, right? Like, it just feels as if like a lot of money has been poured into this, undeservedly so. And you can call me a hater for that. But when things like this happen and women say the things that they do, and when I say that on average a man could beat up a woman and people get offended, right? There is a rub here of reality that we are just living in two worlds. And in my opinion, Dildo Gate was those two worlds. Finally, like one of the worlds said, F it. You know what I mean? Like, you think you can beat DeMarcus Cousins one-on-one? You think Jeff Teague was a serviceable player compared to Caitlin Clark? You think you think you could beat Ant-Man 11-10? All right. Your opinions are so silly that they invite these kind of trolls. Does that make sense? That's kind of what I'm saying. I'm not really taking a side here. Some of the things I might say, obviously it sounds like I'm taking a side, but I'm not trying to. I'm really just giving what I think people are feeling and what this rub is. That's just my 2 cents on it, right? Maybe you guys disagree, but lastly, right? The way the WNBA has reacted. Again, there was another incident where a female player's weave fell off and a fan made fun of them and they threw them out. Now, I don't know what they said. They could have said something way over the line, very derogatory. Maybe deservedly so. But if it was just laughing or, poking fun at them, and again, I know in the NBA the last few years, this has been a thing as well where fans say something a player doesn't like and they get them kicked out. This is feeding back into the ego loop I want to talk about with modern NBA today too. But again, we're talking about in the NBA's entire history, right? Fans being thrown out for saying mean things is very, very, very rare, right? And what the point I want to get to that, right, is so WNBA has been around for like 30 years now. I want people to think about Bill Russell, right? Now, I'm usually not one for like giving people, like when we do our GOAT debates, right? I don't like to give people credit for like off the court stuff, but it is a thing, right? It is a thing. And if you can't look at how sort of Bill Russell carried himself and what he went through, he won people over. He won people over to where even if you were the biggest Bill Russell hater or you didn't like him for whatever reason, right? You know what I mean? That at the end of the day, when he won and he carried himself the way that he did, how can you not slow clap for him even if you're the biggest hater, right? Even if you hate him for all the wrong reasons, right? And again, for someone in that situation to show humility and a restraint, it speaks volumes, right? It's quite incredible. It's a remarkable thing, right? The way that people act sometimes, you have to understand, like, you wanted this. You wanted to be famous. You wanted your own league. For you then to put up nets and to kick people out for saying something when the weave fell off, or, the dildos are so derogatory and offensive and stuff like that. You invite it, right? These comments you make, this ego you have, in my opinion, again, people might think I'm being a little crude by saying, oh, you can't say women have an ego. In women's sports, with comments like this is an ego that needs to die. I remember turning 15, 16, 17, and the ego that I had, that I thought I would go to some D1 college, right? That ego died very quick. That ego died on the side of the road, right? When you come back from your first away game and you just got ran out the gym and you saw like some of the best players you'd ever thought you'd see, and you realize that there's another level to this thing, and you're not even close, right? You thought you were good. You're good at your community center. You're good in your town. And then all of a sudden you played someone across state, or a guy walked into the open gym from across the other side of town, and he plays for some school you never heard of or whatever, right? And you see these guys who are there is always an awakening moment, an awe moment, when your ego gets checked, right? And it just, with stuff like this, it just feels like that hasn't happened yet. And again, I did that video with Clay Travis where he said he put up $1 million for the best boys basketball team to play the best women in the world. They're never going to take that. And that's the humility of it. You know, if you guys are complaining about money and you think you can beat NBA players, you would jump at the chance to play some high school boys, right? And it should be easy money, easy publicity, and you get to prove people wrong. Like, why wouldn't you take that? That's a layup for you, the way that you talk about it, right? But we all know the reality, right? And so that's what I wanted to say. That I know that might be a lot for some people. I'm not trying to be rude, but comments like this, you have to admit, even if you're on the other side of the aisle or you disagree, and someone says something like this, or Brittany Griner says, you know, she can beat DeMarcus Cousins easy, or I can beat Ant-Man 11-10. I mean, do you understand that, like, that is like high school, college me when I was balling every day or whatever. That's like me saying I could beat Ant-Man 11-10. Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. It's so crazy, man. And it just, I don't know where we go from here, right? Because comments like that get you dildos on the court. That's what I'm trying to say. Maybe that should be the title of the video. With comments like that, you get dildos on the court. That's going to be the title of the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I tried to keep it short. I know I kind of rambled again, but I appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one.